I get spicy book requests all the time. So if that is you, you might want to keep watching. Hey everyone, my name's Amanda and I'm the Fun Size Reader, and it is day 20 of Bookmas. And today we are going to be talking about the spiciest books that I read this year. These books are spicy according to my scale. They're my personal scale. It is the only thing that I use to rate the spice in books. If you haven't already watched my star and spice rating video, I definitely recommend you do that. It is on my main channel page. It's got its own section. You can watch that and get a little bit more familiar with what goes into my spice and star ratings. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to give just a little bit of a review for what I give for my 4 and 5, because everything in this video either has a 4 chilies or a 5 chilies. All of my ratings can kind of move. They kind of have a little spectrum that they can shift on. It's a sliding scale. There's no hard definites. I don't have a checklist. The books don't have to have these specific things to be in this rating. It's kind of more of a feel and general parameters. Usually a 3 chili peppers is kind of my sweet spot. That's what I like reading the most, which is just spicy scenes sprinkled throughout, more than just once. That's where I like to stay. But to bump that up from a 3 to a 4, it needs to be happening fairly frequently, but still have a lot of plot. So a lot of like longer books that have tons of spice in it can be a 4, depending on how much of the time in the book they take up. Anytime there is any sort of spicy preference or certain spicy behaviors, or anytime there's more than 2 people present in the scene, that automatically bumps it up to a 4 for me. 5 chili peppers for me means that the main point of the book was the spice. It was spice through and through, and the plot was kind of loosely thrown in there and didn't really matter. All the characters wanted to get to was the spicy scenes. For any of my ratings, they also can be kind of adjusted based on the explicitness, the level of description, or the frequency. I usually really try to explain why I either bumped up or bumped down a spice rating if it doesn't fit in my general parameters, because I like to be clear as to why I am giving it that rating. I have to be able to explain. That's why I do my videos, is so I can explain it to you. Let's start with the 4 chili peppers. Like I say in my videos, and like I warn everybody that I recommend this series to, Zodiac Academy increases in spice as the books go on. But in general, once it hit a 4 for me, they pretty much stayed at a 4 the whole rest of the time. Spice is not the plot in Zodiac Academy. There is a lot of heavy plot that happens outside of the spicy scenes. But the spicy scenes are very prevalent, and there are quite a few of them that may involve more than one person. So beginning at book 5, 6, and 7, there are 4 chili peppers for me. I haven't read 8 yet. I'm not sure how that one's going to go, but based on the way that the rest of them have gone from 5 and up, I would probably say this would be at least a 4. Next, we have The War of Two Queens by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This was a 4 chili peppers for me. This one, the reason why it's 4 is what caused so much controversy about this book. People either loved it, or they hated it, or they were kind of indifferent about it. I kind of fell into the indifferent category. I didn't wish it was that way, but it was that way, and that's what it was. I have a lot more comments on this book, not trying to get into the drama, but if you are interested in how I felt about that spice rating, you can watch my review. But all of this series is very spicy in general. There are a lot of spicy scenes. as is the Shadow and the Ember series, just with lots of spice. But most of the other books, I think I rated a 3. This was the only one so far that has been bumped up to a 4. What Lies Beyond the Veil, technically, I gave a 4. This one was weird. I go over it in my review for the book, but this one was weird because such a big majority of the book had absolutely no spice. And then when you think spice is going to start happening after being teased and dirty talked the whole 70% of the book, then you think it's going to happen and then it's fade to black. And then it happens often and very graphically and very all of it. I gave this one a 4 because of that content, but the majority of the book had nothing in it. So it was a really weird rating, but it's still, for what the content was a 4. The next one is Blood Bonds by J. Bree. This is a reverse harem, and you can assume that at some point there may be more than one man involved. Blood Bonds has a 4. 4 chilies, not 4 men. Who knows, that may come. I haven't finished the rest of the series yet. The next one is Deadlands. This is part of the Savage Land series. The Savage Land series is so weird because it's a slow burn for 2 books. And then you get to the 3rd book and then I give it a 4. It just feels so weird that the ratings are so inconsistent. But this one, I was very specific about the reason why I gave it a 4. The characters are fae and the characters are, it's enemies to lovers. They kind of hate each other. Spicy scenes in this book did have a lot of violence, foreplay, fighting and things like that. And so because of that element of it, I bumped it up to a 4. It did happen very frequently also. So that added to it. So this one was one of those that was kind of not really clear how it should be rated, but that's how I rated it. So I just had to explain. The last one that I rated a 4 chili peppers was 'Tis the Season for Revenge. This was a Christmas book. I didn't really think it was a Christmas book, but it was a Christmas book. There was a lot of spice in this book. It was very, very spicy. And there were some elements of certain spicy preferences. They weren't really prevalent, but they did jump into the book in certain scenes. And so because of that, I bumped it up to a 4. Like I said before, anytime there's any sort of kinks in the spice, I tend to bump it up. Just to make sure that I warn the reader that there are some differences than what some other people expect. I just try to be clear. Now we're moving on to books that I rated with 5 chili peppers, which is the highest of my scale. I read the first 2 Ice Planet Barbarian books this year. Everybody was reading them, so I had to try to read them. I read the first 2. They were both 5 chili peppers. The plot was the spice. It was big blue alien spicy scenes. That was the plot. The first one really didn't have a lot of plot. The second one had more plot. So while I still gave it a 5, it had more than the first one. There was a little enemies to lovers in there. There was a little hostage situation type thing in there. So, there was more. I'll give it that. But it still was just mainly how often can we bang? Speaking of how often can we bang, A Court of the Vampire Queen was the whole first 200 pages. I gave this one 5 because this was all spice. There was no plot. It was all spice, at least for what I read of it, because I stopped after 200 pages. Extremely, extremely spicy. It's a reverse harem. Why choose? There are 3 men involved. Probably the spiciest thing I've read all year just because it never stopped. The next book is A Kingdom of Stars and Shadows. This book, to me, did not have any plot. And if it did, the plot was so loose. This was fae smut. It was mostly spice. It was kind of that Fated Mates spice feel. So when I have people that ask me, I just want fae smut, I just want fae spice, like what can I read? This is usually my go-to recommendation. The next one was Icebreaker. I've talked about this book and the spiciness of it a bunch. I gave this 5 mainly because of the quantity. There was a lot of spice, but there was still plot. It just was that much throughout the book. Not only was it really prevalent in the story and in the book, but it was very descriptive. The descriptiveness combined with the amount is what pushed it well past a 4 and into a 5 for me. This was a very, very spicy book, especially for its length. But there was still a ton of plot, which is why I think I liked it so much. It basically still had a strong plot and strong characters, but there was tons of spice. You really hit the ground running on that one. The next one that I gave 5 to was Royally Not Ready by Megan Quinn. I was not expecting this spice level from this book. Not at all. It was my first Megan Quinn book. I had no idea what was coming for me. No pun intended. When I say it's Princess Diaries meets 50 Shades, I'm not joking. The 50 Shades should give you an idea of why I bumped it up to a 5. But once the spice started, it was very descriptive. There were lots of kinks. There were lots of different scenarios in there, and it bumped it up to a 5. It wasn't because it was the plot, but there was so much focused on will there, won't they, will there, won't they in the book that it was a heavy part of the plot. Well, I am not afraid to read spicy books. I am not. I know a lot of people shy away from them, but I think it's part of romance reading. I mean, you can definitely read books without spice, and I still love books without spice too, but like, I'm not shy. I definitely will tell you guys how I feel the book rates for every single romance that I read, which is most of what I read. I do have a playlist of spicy books. All the reviews that I have for them are all in the playlist, so you can always take a look at that if you are looking for more. And of course, the spicy books are going to keep coming all throughout next year. And I will always do spice ratings in my reviews. I also want to reiterate that I never, ever, ever recommend spicy books with explicit content to anyone who is under 18. I do the spicy ratings in my reviews because I get so many messages from parents asking, hey, can my kid read this book? Is this okay for an XYZ-year-old? So anytime I give a spice rating, it means there is explicit content in that book. So I do not recommend that for anybody who is under 18 years old. If it's got a chili pepper, there's explicit content in it. If it's 0 chilies, then there's not. And I will always explain what that means. Even if it's a 0 chili, I will tell you what that means. Anyways, I hope you found some books on this list that you can enjoy. Thanks for coming to the 20th day of Bookmas. And don't forget, you can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at The Fun Size Reader. See you guys next time.